My name is Shannon Ince. I'm with the Planning Department, and I'm the current chair of the WILLO Develop Committee. And if I could have some hands raised of committee members that are on WILLO, no matter what committee you're on, please. A lot of you, and we're going to need more of you, which Veronica will talk about later. So thank you for joining us today. It is a great honor to welcome you today to this WILLO Fireside Chat. Today we have a unique opportunity to engage with an inspiring leader, Sandra Quince, and whose remarkable journey and insights promise to empower and encourage us all. We are privileged to also have Chief Equity Officer Shaylin Jackson. She'll moderate the discussion today. And Shaylin's commitment to fostering equity and inclusion in leadership aligns perfectly with this discussion today. Also, they have a serious vibe going, so you'll enjoy the conversation a lot. And following their chat, Sandra and Shaylin, they want to answer your questions. So be thinking about some questions for them later. And at that time, after they're finished with the chat, just raise your hand, and Development Committee members Jennifer Swan and Milena Means will bring you a microphone. Our WILLO incoming chair, Veronica Thomas, will close us out today, and she'll have some important news about opportunities to serve as on one of WILLO's 4 committees next year. So I am ready to get this fireside chat started, and so please help me welcome Shaylin Jackson.
Yes, hello. Hi, y'all. How y'all doing? Ooh, your hair is doing it, Chris. It's doing it, Chris. Yeah. Chris got her hair done last night, y'all, so it's cute. Well, I am so excited to be here. Before we get started, I do just want to say that the city manager and the assistant city managers are not here because they don't care. Oh, there's Laura. Laura always finds a way. Look at that. They are all they're preparing to go into a city manager's retreat in yesterday, so I don't know how she's finding a way as always. No, in a little bit, so they're wrapping up some stuff here because we all know how emails can always be waiting on you. So they're wrapping up some stuff, but they got to hang out and talk to Sandra earlier, and they're really excited and welcoming and glad that we all have this opportunity. Before I get started and introduce Sandra formally, I just want to say you all are in for a treat. Sandra has been a mentor and a friend of mine for a while and has made a really big impact on my career and a number of careers throughout the nation, honestly, because of the reach that she has with the organizations that she's involved in. So please take all the notes and ensure that at the end you ask all the questions. This is not a time to be bashful. This is a time to really say that we have a mentor on loan right now, right? So please soak it all in. She's an open book. That's the vibe, right? If you know me, you know I'm an open book. Sandra's an open book. So ask her all the questions. So formally, I will say that Sandra Quince is the co-chair and board director for Paradigm for Parity. She's the former CEO for Paradigm for Parity through Bank of America's Leader on Loan program, responsible for leading all elements of P4P's, Paradigm for Parity, P4P's strategic plan, programming, and operations. She currently holds the role of co-chair and board member for P4P. Sandra has over 15 years of experience in HR, where she has driven work efforts in the areas of diversity and inclusion, talent management and development, and learning across multiple organizations and industries. This includes previously serving as the DEI executive for Bank of America, supporting the CEO and Chief Diversity Officer in delivering the global D&I strategy. Sandra was also the head of D&I for the bank's global HR, Human Resources, an organization of over 2,500 employees. Sandra was selected as one of the 50 Black women for the Goldman Sachs 1 Million Black Women Impact Grant, named as a 2022 D&I Most Inspiring D&I Leader, and Oklahoma's The Journal Record's 50 Making a Difference list of honorees for 2021. She has been featured in Essence, CEO World Magazine, and Fast Company, in addition to interviews with radio and television outlets. She serves on several nonprofit advisory boards and is one of the newest members for the National Council of Nonprofits. Please welcome Sandra Quince.
Thank you.
2 snaps.
Is this on? Okay, great. I always get, I have my phone because I got my notes here, and I got my notebook because I got my notes. But it's such a pleasure to be here with you, and I'm always, I don't care to read bios that much because titles and things that you've done doesn't really matter. I mean, it matters, right? And you should definitely celebrate that. But I think what's most important for me here today is that when you walk away, you feel like you've gotten something out of today and you're gonna go back and do something different. So although you heard all of that, what will make me really happy is at the end if you say, Sandra, you inspired me to do something different today. And that's what I'm looking forward to.
So my first question for you, Sandra, is what is the one thing that can make all the difference in reaching professional success?
Yeah, so the one thing that makes all the difference, and this is true from no matter what industry you're in, no matter what role you have, is sponsorship. In fact, if you've ever done any studying or read any studies about sponsorship, the only way that anyone makes it up and through the C-suite of corporate America or even becomes the mayor of a city, the president of the United States, any office is through sponsorship. Sponsorship is very different from mentorship. So let's talk a little bit about that. Mentorship is fantastic, and we all need mentors, right? You need people that you can go to, that you can bounce ideas off of, that you can say, hey, check my thinking on this. Can you review this for me? I want to role play something with you. I just need someone that I can have a real conversation with to ensure that whatever decision that I'm about to make is a really good decision. That is mentorship. And that person is there to help you think about what's next for you, right? And that's mentorship at its core. Well, sponsorship is different. Sponsorship is the person that has the personal and professional capital, that has a seat at the table and can clearly make decisions that will impact your career. So whereas mentorship comes alongside to support, sponsorship goes ahead and kicks the door down for you. In order to have a sponsor, though, you've got to be sponsor ready. So what does that mean? That means you have to know what it is that you want from your career, because lots of times we sit in front of mentors and we debate about what we want, what we don't want, and that's okay. But when you sit in front of a sponsor, you have to be very clear about what you want. And I remember earlier in my career, I would sit in front of those that I considered sponsors of mine, and they'd ask me that question, and honestly, I could not answer it. All I knew is that I wanted to be promoted and I wanted to make more money. But that's not the right answer when you sit in front of a sponsor, because guess what? We all want to be promoted and we all want more money. What a sponsor's looking for is, tell me what it is you want to do. Not necessarily what role do you want, but do you know what experiences you want to have? Do you know where your areas of challenge are so that you can grow into those? Do you know what you're really good at? And do you know what you're passionate about? And so when you sit in front of the sponsor, you can articulate it that way. I want a role that allows me to build X skills, to continue to capitalize off of X skills, and gives me exposure in X areas. And that way, that sponsor can take that information, also understanding that they're going to want to know how you've currently performed. Here are the things that I've been able to do, the impact that I've been able to have. And oh, by the way, when you talk about impact, you need to make sure it includes data. How many people have you touched? What percentage have you brought in? So you need to make sure that when you're talking about that, it includes some sort of data so they have information to go on. Because as your sponsor, my job would be to sit at the table, and when that next role comes available, I can say, hey, Shay is ready for that role. And let me give you 3 reasons why I know she's ready. And I'm willing to put my personal and professional capital behind Shay and make sure that I run air cover for her and ensure that she's successful. That is how everyone gets to the next level, right? And it doesn't mean that I'm not good at what I do. Absolutely, I'm good at what I do. But if all I'm doing is thinking that if I just put my head down and I work really hard and somebody's gonna tap me on the shoulder and I'm gonna get that next promotion, it's not gonna happen.
I appreciate you. Sponsorship is something that I've heard you talk on multiple times, both in one-on-one interactions in front of groups. And I know one of the things that I've heard you say, and you alluded to it today, is always be sponsor ready. And one of the things that I appreciated in that instance was about how important it is to understand that every interaction is an opportunity to build a sponsor.
That's right.
I can't remember who we were talking to, but I remember you saying, like, even the way that you serve customers internally and externally, because what you don't want is someone to also say in a room, that person's really rude, or that person might not be ready because of X, Y, Z. So thinking of those many interactions that we often take for granted as opportunities to also prove the person goes over and beyond, or whatever that looks like. But you also talked about how important it is to understand that you might not know who's saying your name in a room, and that goes into being sponsor ready. Mentors, you typically know, but I know that you've always said too, you might not know who's sponsoring you, but always be sponsor ready.
Absolutely, and lots of times because people are watching from afar, or some people take a personal interest in you, and you're having conversations about the work that you're doing, and so then they go back and automatically say, this is a person that I definitely want to sponsor. But certainly, you know, for companies and organizations, they really need to create opportunities for sponsorship. And all of your senior leaders, your leadership should be required as a part of being a leader in an organization. They should be required to sponsor. It should be the culture. There should be a culture of sponsorship that's happening. And then you should inquire and ensure that your leaders are sponsoring others that don't look like them. It's really easy to sponsor the people that look like us, that we feel most aligned to, that we spend a great deal of time with. But it is completely important that we sponsor people who don't look like us.
All righty. So next question is, what can get in the way of achieving professional success?
Yeah. So, you know, there are 2 things. Number 1 is lack of planning on our part, your part, my part, right? That gets in the way of success. Earlier I said, if you just put your head down and you work really hard. I grew up in a home where I was told every day, if you just work really hard, you'll get promoted. You'll get the grades that you need, right? And that works well for high school, right? That works well for college because your grades are an indication of the work that you put in. That's not the case at work. Working hard is table stakes. That means that's expected of everyone. And what I found throughout my career was I was putting my head down, I was working really hard, and I was doing great work. But when I lifted my head up, I saw so many people that had passed me by, meaning so-and-so was getting a promotion, this person over here was getting a promotion, and I didn't understand what is going on. I'm really good at what I do. Why aren't I getting a promotion? And I didn't understand the pie theory. How many of you have heard of pie? And so you raised your hand. What's your name? Again, because I know I met you earlier. Dion. Dion, what's pie? Do you remember? Okay. Yep. So think about pie this way. Pie is performance, image, and exposure. That's pie. And when you think about your career, you need to think about it in those 3 categories: performance, image, and exposure. So now think about it like a piece of pie. Which is the largest piece of that pie? Thank you, Dion, for answering, by the way. I appreciate you. Which is the largest piece of that, of pie? Is it performance, image, or exposure? Exposure. Exposure is the largest piece. It represents 60% of your career is exposure. Performance is 10%. And so you would say, no, that's crazy. That doesn't mean that you perform at a level of 10%. Okay? What I'm saying is, when it comes to career and progression, performance only represents 10%. So remember I told you I was putting my head down, I was working really hard, because I had the performance down, but I wasn't managing the other two pieces. Image is 30%. Image is your brand. Your brand is the narrative, right? So you guys had my bio before I came. What happens is your brand precedes you. So when you walk in a room, your brand is already there. And if you're not managing the narrative, it is being managed for you. So you have to ensure that you are managing your brand. The last piece is the exposure piece. Who knows what you do and who knows your value and your worth to your organization? That's exposure. Who do you have exposure to and who has exposure to you? Again, 60%. I learned that if I don't manage my career and understand pie, that I wasn't going to get as far as I needed to get and as fast as I wanted to do it. And once I got a hold of that, my career took off because I understood A, the value of a sponsorship, B, knowing what I wanted, how to articulate my value and my worth. I understood how to get exposure, and I started managing the heck out of my brand and creating a narrative so that when I showed up in a room, people already knew that this is Sandra, this is what she stands for, this is the work that she does. But all of that comes through exposure as well. Now, I haven't always had a great brand, so how do you manage your brand, right? And part of it was me doing some research on my own, really asking people, you know, when in corporate America, we do performance planning, talent planning. Now, I know that may not be the same here. I know that there is some work underway that's happening. But every organization, the way you move talent is through planning. And if you're not planning, it's hard to move talent. I don't understand how you can't move talent if you're not planning the talent, if you don't have succession planning. You're not talking about people. You're not understanding what they do so that you can then say, who are the people we need to think about that's next ready for that promotion? Who is a fit in role? And then who is a does not meet or not quite ready, right? Because that's all a part of the talent planning process. And so what I understood is I needed to manage my brand so that I can let my manager, my manager's manager, and their peers understand who is Sandra, what is she capable of, what has she done, what value has she brought to the organization, right? So that's all a part of managing my brand, managing and getting the exposure that I need, having those conversations and not allowing those leaders to walk past me without having my elevator pitch ready. The other thing that hurts your career is not having a culture that allows for you to show up and do your best work, and a leader that's an inclusive leader. Last night at dinner, we talked about this, and I said, you know, the one thing that can make or break your career, besides your lack of planning, is who you report to. It's who you report to, and I'm gonna be quite honest with you. If they're not an inclusive leader, it makes it very hard for you to show up as your best self and do your best work, and I've been in those situations. Because once you show up in an environment where your confidence has been shattered because you are not valued, you're not recognized for the good work that you do, recognition goes a long way. So if I have any leaders sitting in here today and you lead people, you need to be able to recognize your people, and there are 4 attributes of an inclusive leader.
Get your pens out, get your pens out.
And so these 4 attributes, because we've done a lot of research. Now, yes, you got to be a great listener. Yes, you got to know how to lead people. All of that is true. So these are not the only 4, but these are the most important 4 for an inclusive leader. Number 1, and this is in no certain order, I just have to number them in my head. You have to be a leader that instills trust. People have to trust you. So that when I show up and I want to, I know that I can show up as my authentic self. If I'm off one day and I can have that conversation with my leader, I have to be able to trust my leader. And trust is earned. The other thing is that leader has to be one that's transparent. And so what do I mean by transparent? What I'm not saying is that that leader needs to be my best girlfriend or best, male friend at work. What I am saying is that leader needs to be someone that if things are happening, because you know how water coolers talk is, right? What we all talking about, we all see it, and then everybody acts like it's not happening, right? And that leader might know things and can't really say it. And it's okay to go to your team and say, listen, I know this is being discussed. There are some things going on. I cannot share that with you right now. But when it's time and when I can, I will make sure that it happens. But that leader also passes information down from the organization. Because you know how sometimes information flows, but it stops with your leader and they just don't share it? And then you find out from other people because that leader over there shared it, but my leader over here didn't share it. Lack of transparency. And then you lose trust, right? All right. The third thing is that leader invests in their people. So someone who sits down with you and says, not just, okay, tell me about the work you're doing, but they want to know how you are doing. They want to know what are your career goals and aspirations. So if you lead people and you're not having that conversation, are you truly leading people inclusively? And then then they're there to help, help you get to know others in the organization, help you understand how to build your brand, help you connect and get the exposure that you need. You're interested in doing X, Y, and Z. Let me help you with that. That's what those leaders do when they invest in their people. And then last but not least, they create opportunities for really authentic conversations. Right? A lot of things go on in the world today, and we can no longer just leave our personal problems at home and those societal issues at home. We bring that stuff with us every day. And so being able to create an opportunity where you can say to your team, listen, I know XYZ happened last night or yesterday, or I know we might be feeling some sort of way about changes in our organization, so let's just talk about it. And it doesn't mean that as the leader, I have to have the answers. But what I do is I provide the opportunity. Sorry, my eyes watering. I promise I'm not crying. What I do is I provide the opportunity for my team to have the right discussion about it and in a safe place and in a safe way. And if people don't want to talk about it, it's okay. They don't have to participate. It's okay. So those are the 4 attributes of an inclusive leader. But what we typically do is we hire the person who sells the most widgets, right? The person that's been there the longest, that's done the work, but they can't lead a person out of a box. And they're leaving dead bodies behind because they're not a good people leader. And what we have to do is we gotta start looking at not only did you sell the most widgets, but are you also a good people leader? And so I think here you have the Engage survey.
The gauge.
Or the gauge. And so that should tell me a lot about my leaders based on how their people are responding and where they are in their process. And that doesn't mean that we need to go out and fire all the leaders that are not doing well, but what that does mean is there's some learning and some opportunities there to get those leaders up to speed. And then if they don't embrace it, they may be best as an individual contributor.
What I love out of all the things that I love, one thing that I really appreciate is you're really stressing the importance to understand that everybody is a part of driving this culture, because a lot of times people think that it's just on the leader, but we all have a responsibility, even if it's just knowing what we want. So when the leader asks us what
That's
we want,
right.
we're able to share it.
That's right.
And then I also appreciate you. Really, it's as if Sandra has went through impact, through inclusion, because a lot of times people think that the attributes of an inclusive leader only connects to identity. And it's very, very, very important. Identity is extremely important. And nothing about the 4 things that you said were just support women, just support Black people, just support. At the end of the day, what you add to all of that is how you do those 4 things for all people.
That's why it's called an inclusive leader, right? Because if you do that for your people, they'll run through a brick wall for you.
Anybody.
Yeah.
Anybody. All righty. So how do you handle career obstacles and avoid burnout?
Yeah. Burnout has been a part of my early career days. And I remember when I had my son, who is now 20 years old, it was tough because after I had my son and I went back to work, the first thing I said to my manager on day 1 was, hey, I know I just had a baby, but I don't want that to stymie my career. I am all in. And I shouldn't have had to say that, but I felt like I had to say it, because lots of times when you go out and have a baby, you come back and people make assumptions for you. Well, she just had a baby, she's not gonna be able to travel. She just had a baby, she's not gonna be able to do this. She does had a baby, she doesn't wanna do this. And that's not fair to me. I love my child, but I also love my career. And I really felt like I could have it all, which that's a misnomer as well. Because if you're giving 100% over here, something's lacking over there. And these are just trade-offs that we have to make. But you have to understand that. And you have to be okay with those trade-offs. So a few years ago, probably it's been almost 10 years now, I participated in an event with an organization called Thrive Global. And if you've ever read the book Thrive, so here's my first tip, it's so important, read the book Thrive by Arianna Huffington. If you have ever heard of Arianna Huffington and know her story, Arianna Huffington, the way the book starts is she woke up in a pool of blood because she passed out at work, hit her head on the desk. The reason why she passed out at work is because she did not have work-life balance. There was no work-life integration. She was working just constant and ended up passing out. She founded this organization called Thrive Global, and she wrote the book Thrive. And what Arianna talked about in that book and taught me through that book was how to set up boundaries, how to ensure that you're creating the right relationships with people, and then people who are, for lack of a better word, sucking the energy from you, and how to really put people in categories in your life so that you can then be the best that you can be. But it's not only about personal, but it was about work as well. She also taught me how to be, and this is not a term that she used, but it's a term that my husband's physician used one day when we were sitting in the office, and he asked us what we did, and we told him, we're both in corporate America, and we told him our roles, and he said, oh, so you're desk athletes. I was like, a what? He said, you're a desk athlete. And what's so funny is we don't think of ourselves like that. We don't think of ourselves like athletes. So if you follow any sport, you know that an athlete, in order to perform well, they have to be in tip-top shape. And there are things that they do in order to perform well. But if you're a desk athlete, you need to do those same things in order to perform well. And what Arianna Huffington's book taught me is how to be a really good desk athlete. Because while I'm not always using the physical part of my body, which that has a lot to play into how my brain works, and you'll learn that if you read the book, I learned how to get work done in a shorter period of time. And so I can absorb an enormous amount of work because I'm now a really effective and efficient desk athlete. So what used to take me 3-4 hours to do, now I can do in about 45 minutes. And this was before AI. Now with AI, I can do it in 15 minutes, right? And so I learned to be a really good desk athlete, but I also learned to put up boundaries. I learned to be honest with myself about what I could and couldn't do, and I learned the art of not work-life balance, work-life integration. Everything goes on my calendar. And when I say everything goes on my calendar, everything. And my executive assistant sees it all. If I'm out getting a wax, it is on my calendar. Even if it's on a Saturday. Everything I started doing when my son, I would put in, every appointment he had, every game he had, everything was on my calendar. And that helped me to understand how to better prioritize and hold me accountable. There were times that I couldn't do X on the personal side because I was spending 110% doing work. But then there were times that I needed to be 110% personally. And those were trade-offs that I had earned at work. Now I understand that in all environments that is not the case. But when I tell you work-life integration is so critically important, it's not about balancing because you will never balance the scale. It's about integrating and understanding how to do that and do it well, and also taking care of yourself and putting yourself first. That is so critical and so important. So get the book Thrive, because that's been a game changer for me.
Y'all, I can attest. I don't know how she does it because she is a super mom, super soror, super wife. And one day I was like, how do you email back so fast? Like, how? And she's like, I just have to. And like within 24 hours, I don't know if it's a rule, but you can always guarantee, wasn't she very responsive in all of these? Like, you can always guarantee Sandra is she's gonna come through and do it quickly. I don't know, almost if it's a hot potato, like just get it off of your plate, huh?
Yeah, it's that, but it's also... But it's also just me, again, retraining the way my brain works and how fast I can think about things because it runs so much more effective and efficient. I don't know if you guys know this, but your brains are like, so let's just say this. If you're functioning off 5 hours of sleep, do you know that you're really functioning as a person who is an alcoholic? That's how your brain is functioning. Consider your brain, yep, so if you're laughing at yourself, that's why it takes you so long to get things done. That's why. And besides all the other things we go through as women, especially as we begin to age, it only gets worse. Right? So let's not talk about perimenopause or menopause, because once you reach that stage, it slows down tremendously. But if you are a desk athlete, you will be able to overcome that, and your brain works so much more efficiently. It's like a dishwasher, and if you don't get the proper amount of opportunity to let that brain reset, it's like waking up the next morning and taking the dishes out of the dishwasher and they're still dirty. So you've got to go through that full cycle at night. And people will say, oh, that's overrated, or I can function. Okay, all right then, you just do that. You do that.
Maybe we can continue that part of the conversation at lunch or something for some tips and tricks, because I know that I was talking to Laura one day and we talked about just some simple things that helps us clear even our inbox. You know, we were like, man, we love these auto responses that Microsoft gives now. Click, okay, thanks for letting me know. But that's better than I don't have time to answer at all, and then you forget to respond, or it's been 72 hours or something like that. So
and not allowing things to break you, break your concentration when you're working on something.
Work blocks.
Yeah, because what happens is it'll take you a whole almost 20 minutes to cycle back around and get back into what you were doing. So it's all these other things that you can do. And it's not magic, right? Because what I do, it's not that, oh, I'm this person. No, I've just decided I'm going to do this because it's necessary for me to be able to do all the things that I want to do and still be there for my family and my friends, which are critically important to me.
She means that too, y'all. Okay, I think final question, so then we can go to Q&A. What happens when the life stage and career stage don't match? How do you make the decision towards aligning them?
Yeah. So I don't know if you can ever align, but what I can say is I think these are where you have to make some tough decisions, right? And I don't want to call them tough, but I think you have to make a decision where, again, when I had my son and I went back to work, I knew that I wanted my career to continue to progress. And so I spent an exorbitant amount of time after I made that statement to my manager. Remember I told you I made that statement? Well, they said, okay. And they put me on the road 3 weeks out of the month. And one day I came home and my mother was taking time off. My sister, between my husband, my mother, and my sister, we were trying to make sure my son had everything he needed. I came home one day and I tried to hold my child and he pulled away from me. And when I tell you devastating, I was devastated because I realized I had overcorrected. And I knew that I had to make some changes because I'm only gonna have this child for so long at this age to be able to enjoy this time with him. And you know how it is as women. You start to, and I'm sure men might experience it as well, but I can't speak for a man because I'm not one. But what I can say as a woman is the guilt, the shame of my child, he doesn't even know who I am because I thought I was doing the right thing, right? I was happy, I was doing my career, he was with family, so I kind of felt, but I knew that I needed to right-size that. And so at that point, I went to my manager and I said, listen, my career is extremely important to me, but my child and my family is just as important. And you have to make a decision that, and you've probably read many books where, you have these, where women might say, you can't have it all. And like I said before, it's a sacrifice. I remember reading and listening to Shonda Rhimes when she talked about, you need to put down your superwoman cape. She had actually given a talk at a college. And she said, I took that cape off a long time ago because I realized when I was giving 110%, and if you know Shonda Rhimes, she's the one that does Grey's Anatomy and Bridgerton and all these other shows. And she said, I realized that I was giving 110% at work, that there were things that I was letting go at home and vice versa. And so in order for you to come into alignment, you have to come into alignment with what is helpful and keeps your mental well-being intact for you personally. But just know that whatever you decide, there is a sacrifice. And you have to be willing to decide the sacrifice that you want to make in that moment. And so if for you, the sacrifice is, look, I love what I'm doing, and at this point, my personal life is most important, so I'm gonna just coast in this moment in my career and just sort of, yes, make sure that I'm keeping my brand well, doing my work, but I'm gonna spend more time with my head down working and then spending the quality time with my family. That's okay. Just know that it's a decision that you have to make and that you have to be okay with that decision.
I'll never forget when I was pregnant with Hollis, my first baby, someone said, listen, what I want you to know is people at work won't remember in 10, 20 years the meetings that you missed, but your baby will remember every single thing that you didn't show up to. And then meeting you and seeing it in action. One thing that Sandra has not talked about, but when I met Sandra, her and her husband lived states away. He was in New York, and she was in Tulsa, Oklahoma, because that was them prioritizing their son's education and making sure that he didn't have to move around. And so watching power women like this, I'm like, there is a way to prioritize my family and still get after my career.
That's right. Mm-hmm. And just know that again, was a sacrifice, right? That was a sacrifice my husband made. That was a sacrifice I made. because we want, and I know you guys are like, Oklahoma, we the last for the whole school. Like, why would you leave your child here in Oklahoma to go to school? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Jinx is a good school. Jinx is a good school.
But Jinx is a good school district. And if you know anything about New York, if you've ever had people that live there, you can go to school in any of the 4 or 5 boroughs that are there, but you'd have to train or bus your child, and you have to take all these tests, and people prepare their kids from the time they're born to get into these really great public schools. Otherwise, you're in school 367 with the bars on the window. And I could not do that. And so that was a decision we chose to make as a couple. And we did it for about 8 years. And now I could spend summers and holidays with my husband because I had a job that allowed me to work when I did go to New York and go into offices there. So I had that opportunity. But for the most part, we were apart. And that's a decision that we made for our family. And my son totally appreciates it because he considers Jinx home for him. And that's his home, and we wanted to make sure we can give him that.
Their frequent flyer miles were up, y'all.
Yes.
And Sandra would always say, I don't know, but you better do it now because I'm getting to my husband after Caleb graduates.
That's right. That's what I said. And as soon as he graduated, we sold our home, and I was out of here. But I do come back, and I truly miss it and want to come back and visit friends.
I love it. So we're going to open it up for Q&A?
Yeah.
Any questions? Y'all see, she's an open book. We have one right back there. Okay. It's oil, sorry, y'all.
Yeah, mine too. Sweating up here. Eyes watering, I'm sweating. What's going on? Lord have mercy.
I missed you too.
I know.
Did you coordinate your outfits?
What?
Did you coordinate your outfits?
Oh, no, we did not. We did not coordinate, y'all, but that's how great minds think alike, right? I don't know. I woke up yesterday and I said, I'm going to wear green. I'm just going to do it. So there you go.
Thank you. That was.
Sandra walking down the street, and I said, Shannon, look at her green.
I know.
That was not my question. So my question is, how do you avoid burnout? How do you plan for that? Can you plan for it? Do you have any specific examples of how to handle that?
Yeah. So for burnout? So listen, y'all, and I know it's not easy, but you've got to take time away. You do. You've got to take your vacation and take your time. And there is a study out there that says take shorter, more frequent vacations than longer, less frequent, because that allows you to reset. So what we do is we take shorter, more frequent vacations. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't go away maybe for 7 or 10 days, depending on what we're doing with our family and all of that and what we need to do if we're traveling out of the country. But we really do try to take those Thursday, till Monday time off. That allows you to reset. The other thing to avoid burnout is give yourself during the day white space. And what do I mean by white space? Well, you need to, every 3 hours, you need to get up from wherever you are and walk away from it for at least 5 minutes. Also, other things you can do is have walking meetings. So instead of, hey, let's meet over the phone or whatever, say, hey, let's take a walk outside and let's meet that way. And we're going to walk around the building and we're going to meet that way. Now, I'm not saying you take 20 people and y'all march around the building. That's not what I'm talking about, because that might be a little strange. But what you can do if it's a smaller group of you, 3, maybe 4 max, have a walking meeting or take that meeting outside. But you have to give yourself white space during the day so that your brain can reset and refresh. And that also helps with the burnout as well. I know you're not going to like this, what I'm about to say, but guys, you've got to get plenty of rest. I'm going to tell you, I know you don't want to hear it, and some of you say, yeah, but I function off of 1 hour of sleep a night. No, you don't. You're functioning as an alcoholic at work. You really are. You really are. You don't even realize how you're functioning because you're so used to it. And you think You're on top of your game. But it will alleviate so much frustration in your life if you get rest, and you need at least, even as an adult, 8 to 10 hours. At least 8 as an adult. Remember, it's a dishwasher. It's a cycle. It has to run a full cycle. And if you can't get that, get more than 5, okay? The other thing is, and you're not gonna wanna hear this, but it's all about what you're putting in your body, right? Don't start your day off with a pancake with syrup, a cinnamon roll, and a muffin. Start your day off with not sweet, but savory. Okay? I promise you, you will notice a difference. Start with savory, and then you can have sweet after you eat lunch. Okay? All right? No matter what, your first meal of the day should be savory. Okay, so keep that in mind. Don't start your day with a muffin. Start your day off with savory. And then if you want the muffin, if it's lunchtime that you start your first meal, I don't care what your first meal is, then you can have the muffin after you have your savory, okay? That'll help with burnout as well.
Well, I appreciate Sandra for saying that, because one thing I've noticed being here almost 4 years is it's like a badge of honor to say you have hundreds of hours of vacation saved up. And I'm like,
that's not a badge of honor. That's not a badge of honor to say, I work 50 hours a day, I never take time off. You know what that sounds like to me? That sounds crazy. And it sounds like you're not taking care of yourself. Because when something happens to you, I promise you, listen to me, people, this place is going to go on. Nobody's going to stop. They will stop, they will honor you, they will go to your funeral, they will cry with you, they may not go. You're right, they may not. They may cry with your family, but after that, the next day, the city will open. So take care of yourself. All right, where else?
I feel like I'm in church. Yes, all right.
Oh, it looks like it with these pews.
Do I have to use the microphone? I just don't like
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, most of these strategies and stuff that you're using, you can use it, of course, I'm assuming if you're like a little bit older. Some things, unfortunately, we procrastinate like me, and you wait a little bit longer, but it's like, okay, I don't know, I guess it's kind of like kids is growing, whatever,
Okay, what, are you talking about age right now?
Yeah.
No, you did not, honey.
I did.
Listen, these strategies are not for it's not about age. You're never, listen, I don't care if you're 80 years old, you could start today. Go ahead, was that your question?
Yeah, it was just, kind of about age and these strategies, just make, do they still work and stuff?
Absolutely.
That was just pretty much it. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. These strategies work whether I am 29, 39, 89. And you can always reach, the body is so resilient, y'all. You can become a desk athlete in 3 months. Or you can continue to eat your muffins in the morning and get 1 hour of sleep. It's up to you.
Anybody else? I know somebody has something.
I've got one.
Okay.
I'm notorious for questions, so. What is your best approach to speaking with the department head if you feel like your supervisor is toxic?
Oh, that's a great one. So I am a firm believer that you praise publicly and coach privately, right? Because you always want to maintain the person's dignity, and I never want to throw anyone under the bus. If someone is toxic, that's a personal issue with them. And number one, I don't want you to ever feel like it's you, because a lot of times we think it's us until you start talking to somebody else and you realize it's not just me. It really is this person. So what you do is you go to your supervisor or that manager's manager, whoever, and you sit down and you have a conversation about your career, what you're not getting to be successful, and what you need in order to be successful. And that's how you have that conversation. It's less about what they are and are not doing, the person. It's more about what you need. So when I went to my manager and I actually had the conversation with her because she did something that doesn't allow me to show up as my best self and do good work, I just simply had the conversation around, in order for me to show up and do the work that you need in order to help you be successful, I need this type of environment. You understand what I'm saying? So it wasn't about what she did, it's about what I need. And it flips the script. And it de-escalates. And it allows you to go in and have a conversation where you can feel good about that conversation without saying, hey, did you know my boss? What's your name, ma'am? Sarah. Did you know Sarah is crazy? And Sarah said, yep, you got it. And I'm not getting what I need, and Sarah treats me like this, and Sarah says this, and Sarah says this. But what you can say is, I do work for Sarah. In order to be successful, I need X, Y, and Z. And there are times that I feel like I'm not getting that. And I want to show up and do my best work. And I want to ensure that I can help myself and the team and Sarah be successful. That's a whole nother conversation.
And don't stop there. So sometimes people have those conversations and feel like they didn't get what they needed. So we have HR, we have my office.
That's
Do
right.
Not feel like, well,
Escalate.
Yes,
Escalate.
start there, because we're always going to ask what conversations have you had. But I know of too many people that has felt stuck, and they're like, well, I talked to my, I did a skip level. I talked to my leader's leader. But another thing that I want to say that Sandra alluded to earlier too is understanding that sometimes things are happening behind the scenes that can't be shared. So even when Sandra said earlier, and that's a big topic here at the city right now around leaders can be transparent, but there's sometimes things that will legit get them fired if they share it. Right. Like Craig can't come and talk to me about half the things he talks to the mayor about. Can't. Craig is one of the most transparent leaders, and he cannot tell me everything he talks to the mayor about. And so it's really important to understand that sometimes it's not a matter of you're keeping secrets from me, they're trying to also keep their job. But even in this instance, even if your boss, or the skip level is what we like to call it, is doing something about it, they can't come tell you, just like you wouldn't want someone to tell your business that they're on a pip, don't worry about it.
Yeah,
These things take
I
time.
agree with that.
Yeah.
But what they can say is, I hear you,
Yep.
and I want you to know that we value you here.
Yep.
So they can say that. And that signals to you that they heard what I said, and that they can take that and do what they want with that, right? So it's all about how the leader responds as well, which I think is critically important. And I also think it's important to be able to say, I just can't tell you right now. Like, this is not something I can share. That to me is transparent. When you come to me and tell me, hey, I know you're thinking about X, Y, Z, but I just can't share that information, it's not appropriate for me to do so, I respect that. The other thing you said is skip level meetings. Don't wait until you have an issue. You should be on your boss's calendar on a regular. Yep. On a regular. My boss's boss at Bank of America reports into the CEO. I'm on his calendar quarterly. You know why? Because he reports to the CEO. So when he sits in the meeting with the CEO, I'm hoping my name will flip out of his mouth, right? But it can't if I'm not meeting with him. Yep. And while I will rely on my manager to tell him what I'm doing, that's not her job. It's my job to manage my career. Yes, I want her to advocate for me, but if she happens to fall down and bump her head and become crazy like Sarah, I won't be able to depend on that, right? So, Sarah, I don't mean to call you crazy.
I think what's exciting is, please be assured, we're having conversations with leaders. Gallup is going to be leading a workshop November 15th with leaders to empower them with these tools, even if it's these one-liners. So I do want to say, elevating everything that Sandra's saying, and really hear that sometimes, because we're seeing that a number of times, it's like accountability equals firing somebody. Well, that is not necessarily always the case, but we can't necessarily always share that. So it's a balance, and we are definitely on the leadership development journey, and Gallup is helping us with those, even those one-liners of, I hear you. Like, it is hard for some people to say, I hear you, so I appreciate it. Anything else? Go ahead, 2 more, and then we'll close it up.
Okay. One thing I'd say that resonated with me was your
Well, good, I'm glad. Yeah, performance, image, and exposure, PIE.
Oh, sorry.
no,
I'll
it's
do both
okay.
of y'all because it did look like I was pointing.
Oh, so.
Go ahead. You first. Go ahead.
When you were speaking of inclusive leader and one of those being investing in your staff, transitioning from being a doer yourself to being a leader, making that transition and not only investing in your staff, but learning how to balance that level of investment and making sure you're providing those opportunities for them to grow, but still getting your to-do list done.
You're a player coach. So you coach a team, and then you're expected to play to put points on the board. And so what you have to do is understand that that player-coach mentality should be 70-30, 70% of you investing in your team. Part of you as a leader establishing trust is giving things to your team to watch them develop. That's your most important job. And then 30% of your role is putting those points on the board, keeping in mind that your team, if you really invest in them the right way, you don't have to put as many points on the board. Because when they put the points on the board, you all win. You see what I'm saying? At the end of the day, it's about you winning. And you can give credit to your team, and ultimately, that credit is yours because you're the coach. You get where I'm going? So you don't have to worry about, I gotta outshine. No, you don't. You're the coach. You don't have to outshine anybody. And for you, it's about, if you have a great team and they're doing the work, not that you're not doing work, you are doing your work, but part of your job is the 4 attributes that I talked about, right? And investing in your team is critically important. Does that help?
Last one.
So what tips do you have far as like having that confidence to advocate for yourself and to put yourself out there to take all these steps to be able to be seen?
Yeah. So here's what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you 3 words. Just do it. Because I'm going to tell you something. If you wait to garner up the confidence, you're never going to get it. What you have to do is you got to practice. Practice makes perfect. And so you can't go, but there's no magic potion, pill, powder. I can tell you that's going to, you wake up one day and says, I'm going to advocate for myself. No, what you have to do is you have to start small. Start with, let me have a conversation with my leader about the work that I'm driving and I'm leading. Start there. Let me tell you about how I'm making an impact and what the work is if you lead a team, me and my team are doing together. Have skip level meetings. And the more you do that, don't wait for your manager to sit down and have a conversation with you. You schedule time to have a conversation with your leader. You understand where I'm going with this? Force them to have that conversation with you and say, hey, I just want us to talk a little bit about not only my performance, but my career goals and aspirations. Now, that may scare the heck out of them if they're not used to it, but that's okay. But once you start doing that, your confidence will continue to grow and it'll build over time where you'll become, it'll just roll right off your tongue and you'll be able to say it with ease. Does that make sense? So when you leave out of here, your first assignment is to schedule time with your manager and to talk about the work that you lead and drive. Okay? Is that your manager sitting next to you? Okay. I was finna say, ma'am, we about to get on your calendar.
Well, as we close, I just want to say one of the biggest ways to practice a lot of this is to be involved in a lot of our programs, to be honest with you. If you think about confidence, it's so awesome to see WILLO and the way that they challenge each other. Someone one day was saying, well, public speaking's not my thing. Well, let's write your talking points and have you do the open. Just the open. Just the way to say, welcome everybody, right? So you can ease into this in the way that they're really leaning on each other. We have impact through inclusion. We have the mentor circles. We have a number of things. And really, y'all, a lot of that is grounded in that E of PIE, exposure to one another, exposure to leaders, and just exposure to what's going on in the organization that if you stay in your silos, you might not know about. But man, could that thing help you get to where you want to be in your career once you're able to identify where you want to go in your career. So I just want to say thank you to one of my favorite humans in the world for being here and matching me today. And I'm going to pass it over to Veronica. Thanks, y'all.
Was this conversation not amazing? Was this not amazing? Please join me in, again, giving a huge heartfelt thank you to our speaker, Sandra, and our moderator, Shaylin. I want to give you, Sandra, just a small gift from Willow.
I love it. Thank you.
So, as we bring today's impactful discussion to a close, I hope you're leaving with new insight, new feelings of empowerment, new guidance to go about your personal and professional goal journey. Your journey is in your hands. It is within you to make these changes, and Sandra gave us wonderful insight and just a path to start down. No matter what challenges you face or what stage you may be in, this is a path, this is an avenue that we can all go down, and we can support each other going through this. We want to give a special thanks to the WILLO committee members that helped put this on, please. There was a lot of behind the scenes that makes this look so seamless. You guys did amazing. Now, if any of you are interested and passionate about leadership and mentorship and helping other women and our allies progress in their careers, we invite you to join our 2025 WILLO committees. Out on the table, there was a card with a QR code and some information about an upcoming meeting. Friday, October 25th, we have a Teams Q&A. It will be from 9 to 10 to answer questions about our committees, to get a little bit more information about the committees. This is a fantastic way to get involved, get connected, and to support and encourage each other and others within the city. Again, women and our allies. Just real quick, our Develop Committee helps to shape leadership initiatives throughout the city. Our Support Committee fosters an inclusive environment. Our Connect Committee builds strong networks, and our Logistics Committee drives successful project engagement. Again, if you have questions, you can join the Teams Q&A. You can send an email to willow@okc.gov for a calendar invite so you don't forget. And we hope that you will join us for future WILLO events. Thank you all.